Behind me is a 2019 model Mitsubishi Outlander. Now, I have reviewed one of these before. That was a 2018 model, and that was the all-wheel drive version. This is a two-wheel drive version and the ES variant. Now, in today's review, what I'm going to do is I'm going to take you around the exterior, show you the exterior, then we're going to go in, hop inside the car, we'll have a look at the interior, then finally we'll take the car for a drive and I'll tell you what it's like to drive and some of the statistics behind the car. Now, if you do like my videos, please feel free to subscribe by pressing the subscribe button just below. Now, having a look at this car from the outside, it does look kind of big. When I picked this up, there was an Audi Q5, and I know Q5 isn't a massive car right next to it, but this did look a lot bigger than it. Later on in my review, I'm going to talk a bit about that, and you'll be actually surprised about some of the stats. And this car isn't as big as you think it is. Now, having a look at these wheels here, I really like it. They're 18-inch wheels. I think they make it look nice and elegant style to the car. The rubber on here, this is 225 and 55 profile. If I take you around the front here, yep, here's a Mitsubishi, but it does have a very Mitsubishi look. So if you look at the new ASX, it's got a very similar style front end. If you have a look at the Mitsubishi Pajero, it's also got a very similar front. I'm not a big fan of it, to be honest. I like to see bigger open grills. This has just got a lot of plastic, like that grill isn't even open there. It's all closed up. There's a lot of black plastic around here. I don't know, bit too much plastic for me. You got these chrome bits. I don't know, I'm a bit... Can you tell me what you think in the comments below, whether you like that front? Now, taking a look around the side here, you've got two-tone as well. You've got a bit of the silver chrome look, a bit of the plastic that runs around the side here. You've got these roof rails here if you want to put any roof racks on there. Then you've got some nice lines that give it a bit of a shape there on the side. If we walk around the back here, we have a look at the back here. That you might notice down below there is the tyre. The tyre sits there because this is, of course, a 7-seater, and they need to have space to put that third row when it's folded down. So that's why they've put the tyre down there. The rear lights, I don't mind them. Again, you've got a bit of chrome along here, and you've got your real exhaust, which is hidden, and it's just there, a single exhaust pipe just there. And then we'll just have one more look around the side before we hop inside the car, and I'll take you and have a look at the interior. Inside the Mitsubishi Outlander, and it's fairly basic in here. As you can see, there's a lot of plastic in here. Some of it's actually softer, so it's not as cheap when you feel it, but just looking at it is really just plastic everywhere. They also, I think, need to jazz it up a bit. You know, maybe put some different colors here. It's just all black and black and black everywhere. There's no real different colors here. The seats, I actually don't mind the seats here. They've got a bit of a sporty lip here, and then the pattern's not too bad, and they don't feel too bad either. It's got a lot of real estate here in the dash. There's a lot of real estate here. So if you want to put fluffy toys or something up there, it's a really good place to put them there. Please don't. I'm just joking. Don't put any fluffy toys up there. It looks really bad. You remember those dogs that people used to put up there and their head used to nod? Please don't do that. So in terms of the infotainment system, this is a 7-inch infotainment system, and personally I think it's starting to look a bit outdated. It does have a digital radio in it, and you also get Apple CarPlay and Android Auto, which is quite useful. Besides that, there's not much else that you can see in here that's interesting. You can see your air conditioning view here, but you can't actually, if I touch around, it doesn't let me change it. If I turn the air conditioning on, you can see it shows me little air vents coming out and things like that, but besides that, that's all it does. If we have a look down here, there's an eco mode there button. It's got dual zone climate control, which is quite good. And then down here, you've just got one USB port, and unfortunately it's just a full USB port. So no micro USB, which if you're like me and they've got a more modern phone, that's a bit annoying. You're a bit screwed because you've got nowhere to plug your charger in, unfortunately. You've got your cigarette lighter, you've got 2 cup holders here, which can fit a nice bottle in if you want. If you've got the automatic gearbox, you can get the cheaper version in manual, and it's got no Tiptronic, so you just slip it to the side for sports mode, or you can go into a lower gear. Coin slot here. If you had the full drive version, which this isn't, you'd have the button here. You've got your electric parking brake, and an auto hold button. You've got some more cup holders here, and plenty of space. Your cup or your water bottle fits in there pretty well. Steering wheel, it's a 3-spoke steering wheel. You've got this little black here again, the black gloss that you see everywhere. All your basic buttons are here. Cruise control there on the right, and then on the left you just control the music and things like that. This is also a touchscreen, which I should have mentioned before, so if you need anything you just touch into it. Then you've got your dash display here. It's pretty basic looking. You've just got your tachometer on the left, and then you've got that DIS screen in the middle there, which has some really basic settings, not much, just average fuel consumption. And then down below that you can see the hot and cold, and then your fuel consumption there. And then on the right it's just the speedometer there. What I also found is the seats don't go back that far. So I'm basically at the furthest setting, and I'm not that tall. I'm under 6 foot. So if you're a bit taller, you might find you feel a bit cramped up the front here. You've got your center console with a bit of storage in there. And then you've got your glove box here with a bit more storage in there. What I do also find is the seats here, the manual seats, the controls for them are really cheap and plastic feeling sort of controls. Oh, that's the front of the car. So in the back of the Outlander now, and I can tell you there's a good amount of room here. There's a lot of leg room here. That seat's as far as it's going to go back, so that's a good amount of leg room. I've got a good headroom here. There's a lot of headroom here. And looking around the cabin, it's pretty much the same sort of interior as the front, fairly basic interior. Feels okay, but it's pretty simple. You've got the rear air conditioning ducts there, which is quite good. You don't always get those in these mid-sized SUVs. And then you've got another USB port here for the kids, in case you want to sort of plug in some sort of rear entertainment there. The drivetrain in this doesn't come up too much, so that's quite good. So that will give the person in the middle a lot of room. I'll just hop in the middle now and check it out. It's a small middle seat though, that's the only thing. It is kind of small, so with this baby seat here, I think it would get quite squashed in that middle seat. So the car is quite a narrow car, so that's obviously going to affect it. So if we have a look here, it's got some cup holders in the side here. So we've got our bottle, and then we've got some storage there. The windows in these, they go down fairly much most of the way, which is good. And we just put that back up. And then what I found is, the cup holders in this middle seat here, it is hard to get it open with this child seat in there, so you've got to force that child seat back. And then the cup holders there come down. You can put your water bottle in there, or just simply use it as an armrest. And what I found as well is the ISO fits in these aren't the most user-friendly ISO fits. It took me a while to put that child seat in. Hopefully you're not taking child seats in and out too often, but if you are, that might be a problem, or you just eventually get used to it. These seats are on rails, so you can push them forward if you like, just like that, or back, depending on your preference. Obviously, you'll need to push it forward a bit if you've got people in the third row there, especially adults, to allow them to get a bit of leg room. Anyway, let's go have a look in the third row and see how much room's in there. I'm going to see if I can actually fit in that third row. So this is going to be interesting. So hopping in the third row is kind of fairly easy. You've got a clip just up here, and then you pull that clip back and give it a bit of a push, and then you can hop in the back here. So I'm going to hop in, push this up, and I think if I push this seat back, there's going to be not much room for me. It's for small children, I think it's going to be enough. So we'll just push this forward. Look at that, with that seat a tiny bit pushed forward, I've got room in here to deal with for a small journey. I don't think I'd like it on a long journey. I've still got some headspace at the back here, which is kind of good. I'm going to hop in this seat just on the left here, just to see if I could even get in there with these second row right back. I've got big feet, yeah, so if you've got the second row back, that's about as much leg room as you're going to get. So definitely not comfortable for any journey as an adult there. But look, they're useful. I would say that they're not completely impractical, but definitely two kids could fit in here. If you're happy to move the seats forward, and you can do that with the leg room that you've got in that second row, then you can probably fit two adults in here on a short journey without too much of a problem, as long as they're not too tall. Anyway, we'll go check out the boot space now. The boot space in this is 477 litres. Now it's probably about middle of the class. You can get the Subaru Forester or the Honda CR-V, which are going to have a bigger boot space to this, but there is some of this boot space which is sacrificed by this third row, which is hidden under there. So we'll just show you that third row now. I'll just pull it up so you can see it. And we'll pull both these seats up. They're really easy to get up, except that seat I need to push back so I can get this up. Now with this third row up, it gives you 128 litres of space just here. So still enough room, but definitely if you're going on a long trip, you'd want to make sure that you've only got 5 people in the car and you've got that 477 litres in there. To get it down, you just pull this back up and then back down. They go back down fairly easy as well. Now, having a look in the back here, you've got a lot of hooks and different spaces here. You've got some storage space down there, and then you've got a power 12-volt socket just there, and then you've got, that's the area, obviously the cup holders and the areas for when that third row's up, and then you've got a bit of storage down here underneath there if you want to store anything. So that's a boot. And then we'll close that. This boot's quite heavy actually. You've got to put a bit of muscle in it to close it. And did you hear that rattle there? It feels like, and I've done it a few times, you feel like you haven't closed the boot properly. It's got this weird sort of rattle there. I don't know why, but it does. Anyway, let's go take it for a drive, see how it drives. In the Outlander, driving it now. And seating position's pretty good. You can see over the bonnet quite clearly. There is a bit of a blind spot which you get in all of these full drives, which is that 3/4 panel down the back there, and the only way you could really get around that is to put a bigger window in that rear window there, but you're still going to have a bit of a blind spot there. In terms of technology in this car, it doesn't have a huge amount of technology, to be honest. This is the ES, as I mentioned before, so this is the very basic model, but you really only get your traction control, your cruise control, your ABS, and then you get a rear parking camera, but no sensors to help you. So no autonomous emergency braking, which I think is weird, but in saying that, in the latest models of these, Mitsubishi's actually come out and included a few other options like autonomous emergency braking and also blind spot assist. So well done with that, Mitsubishi. And that might be because in a very near future they'll be bringing out a new facelifted model, so they're probably trying to get rid of the old models before that comes out, and who knows, by the time you watch this that might already be out. In terms of how it feels on the road, it feels pretty smooth when you're on a smooth road. What it doesn't handle well is bumps. If you go over a bump, it really starts to make the suspension come undone, which is a bit disappointing, but generally on smooth roads it's reasonably smooth. I wouldn't say it's the most smoothest car I've ever driven, but it's smooth enough and comfortable enough. In terms of the steering on this car, I find it too light, especially going around town. It's okay, it should be light and it makes it feel like a smaller car, but as soon as you go at highway speeds, what you do find is the steering is still light. What they should have done is have the system in place, which it's not an expensive system at all. I had it in a 2008 Audi A4, where as soon as the car starts to pick up speed, the steering starts to get a bit heavier, and that works really well. The handling on this car is also, it's a bit iffy. It rolls a lot around the bends, and you'd expect, okay, fine, if it rolls a lot, you'd expect that you get better, sort of a bit smoother on the road. And as I mentioned before, it's not super smooth on the road. So They could have done a bit better with the suspension and tweaked it a bit more so it didn't roll as much around the bends. The brakes on this car, they're really good. They really pull you up quite a fair bit, quite quickly, and they don't feel too soft and underfoot. The sound system on this car, I was really critical last time I drove one of these. I felt that the sound system was really poor on it, so I don't know whether they've upgraded the sound system since then, or maybe it was just the settings I had for that car. But the sound systems are actually not too bad on this. It's definitely not as good as the Europeans, but it's as good as its other Asian counterparts, and it gives a bit of a clear bass when you do turn the system up. The fuel efficiency of this car, well, Mitsubishi says it does 7.2 litres combined to 100 kilometres. I can tell you, I've been driving this mainly on the highway, a bit around the city, and what I've got now is it's just come down. It wasn't 9 litres per 100 kilometres, it's just come down to 8.9 litres per 100 kilometres, so I think you would struggle to get to that 7.2 litres which Mitsubishi claim. In terms of the engine in this car, so this car's got the 2.4 litre engine, it's a 4-cylinder engine, and it's 125 kilowatts and 220 newton meters of torque. So not a huge amount of power, but not too bad in terms of power. It is quite slow though. To 100, Mitsubishi say it's 11 seconds, which is really not quick at all. In terms of acceleration, we'll actually just test it now, so I'll just stop the car. I'll put it in sports mode, so it doesn't have Tiptronic, so I've just put it in sports mode on the side here. I'll just rev it a bit. It does let me rev it, actually, that's quite good. And then I'll just drop it. It's wet, so there's a bit of wheel spin there. Revving out to just 6, it's taking a while to get there because of the CVT gearbox. And that's 100. So it took a while. It's just that weird feeling actually with the CVT gearbox because it just doesn't change actually gear. So you can't, obviously that's how a CVT gearbox is, but it just doesn't do any of the changes. So you see it revving and just holding those revs all the way through. So it's a bit, feels a bit strange if you're used to other gearboxes. In terms of that CVT gearbox, that is a 6-speed CVT gearbox. It seemed to actually perform okay. It definitely wasn't quick, but it allowed you to launch the car off a bit, and there was a bit of wheel spin because it is a bit wet here. But yeah, it took off the line, and a lot of the cars I've been driving recently have just not let you even rev the car a bit once you've got your foot on the brake and idling. Some things that I found driving the car which are a bit strange or maybe annoying is when driving over long periods, I like to sort of rest my arms, just like I am now. What I found is on the right here, this armrest where you can see the fabrics just covering here, underneath that plastic is really, really hard. And what I found is my elbow got really sore after while driving, so I had to find another place to try and rest my arm, like up here. The other thing I noticed was the blinkers. So when I was changing lanes, so turning the blinker on, and then when I go turn it off, I'd accidentally flick it up and then keep the blinker on. And that doesn't happen every time, but it did happen a lot of times. So that was a bit annoying there, realizing then having to turn the blinker off. They've got this eco mode here. Now, I tested it a few times on the highway, and I don't think it does anything. If you put it in sports mode, it'll still tell you up here on the DIS that it's in eco mode. And the only thing I noticed was a very, very slight drop in the revs per minute, which was like 100 revs per minute it would drop on the highway if I was in eco mode. So I don't think you're going to be saving too much fuel doing that. So what do I think about this Mitsubishi Outlander? Well, first of all, the things I don't like. The interior, I think the interior looks really outdated in it. And it does look a bit cheap and a bit boring. I think they need to jazz it up a bit. The other thing I don't like that much in it is the handling. I think it's a bit rocky and rolly around the bends, and it could be they could have made the suspension a bit more stiffer. The other thing I don't like in this car is the steering itself. It's really light, and it's okay in the town, but when you take it down the highway or at high speeds, it's just too light. Now, things I like about it. First of all, the cost. This is 30,000 Australian dollars brand new, and that's a lot of car for $30,000. So I reckon that's great. Secondly, what I think is great is the space. It's really practical, this car. I've mentioned the boot 477 litres, but one of my cars has got an Audi SQ5, and that's got a 540 litre boot, and this boot feels a lot bigger. What I think is it's actually longer, and it's probably not as deep, with the third row in the back taking out some of the depth, but it's more than enough room, and I think the numbers don't do it justice. And finally, I also like the brakes. As I mentioned before, they've got a really good feel to the pedal. They're really strong, they feel really reliable. So look, overall, I think it's something that you should have a look at. I wouldn't just go out and buy the car, but definitely have a look at it, have a look at some of its competitors, and you know, if it ticks some of the boxes, it doesn't tick all the boxes, but if it ticks the boxes that you need to tick, then yeah, it's definitely something to consider. Anyway, thanks again for watching my review. I hope you liked it, and if you did, please feel free to subscribe.